Hi, everyone, and welcome to, I guess, our final episode of the season of This Week in Hockey East. And we are so happy that we've made it this far because we have two of our own playing in the Frozen Four in Minnesota this weekend. Boston University is back for the second year in a row. Boston College is back in the Frozen Four since the first time since 2016. Let's dive in to what you can expect to look for here in these couple of games coming up on Thursday. Basketball's out of the way. It's all hockey right now as we get set for two really exciting games in what is this blue bloodiest of Frozen Fours that we've ever had. A combined 28 national championships between Boston College, Boston University, Denver, and Michigan. The Blue Bloods are back so much that Andrew Mahoney, our friend, had a great article in the Boston Globe saying that Jack Parker was rooting for BC to get there. So we had a potential of an all Boston final, and Jerry York doing the same the other way. So we bring us back here to this Blue Blood Frozen Four. And in game number one, it will be Denver surviving a Springfield regional, which included a victory over UMass and a couple of overtimes against Boston University. Tyler, let's start and just dive into a matchup that sees BU back in the Frozen Four for the second year in a row.
Yeah, impressive. Jay Pandolfo as a head coach, back-to-back years, and as a player, all 4 years. So that's just what Jay Pandolfo does, I guess, when he and BU get together. But this vaunted offense for the Terriers, 6 goals in both tournament games so far. So they have to feel great about that part of their team, and especially when Lane Hudson is making great plays to set up what turned out to be the game-winning goal against Minnesota. Remember, it was 2-0 Gophers. Then BU scores 3 unanswered, but Minnesota comes back to tie it twice. So that really was back and forth. You need those high-level plays by guys like Lane Hudson. So that's really encouraging. But early on, even with the 2-0 deficit, it never felt like the Gophers were going to run away with it, even with that early lead. I mean, BU was controlling play early, winning puck battles, dominating in shots on goal. And when they're playing like that, I can only think of one team in the country that can hang with them. Can they take a page out of UMass's book, where it felt like every 50-50 puck against Denver went UMass's way, and they absolutely played well enough to beat that Denver team. But to the Pioneers' credit, I mean, they've been here before, and they overcame that near-perfect effort from UMass, and then they beat Cornell at their own game to get to the Frozen Four. 2-1, those are how the Big Red win games, but Denver pulled it off. And of course, if they have Rizzo back, you can expect a whole lot more than just 2 goals from the top scoring offense in the country. So it's a BU defense that has come such a long way over the course of the season. They're really going to be tested if Denver is at full strength. But 6 goals a game, that is tough to hang with. So it's a heavyweight bout, and it's impossible to predict. A lot of people around town, of course, BU versus BC, that's destiny. But Denver is a huge hurdle for BU. And if they get there to the championship game, they will have absolutely earned it.
Yeah, you're right. And, we also have to talk about Matthew Caron once again, who continues to backstop this BU team and has continued just to play extremely well and has gotten BU through to this point, made a couple of big saves when that RIT game was maybe not in doubt is the right word, but was still very competitive when BU was down against Minnesota, allowing them to come back. So that's, a pretty crucial thing. Couple of things to look out for, though, when you're watching this game and we talk about these Denver Pioneers. You mentioned it, the fact that Denver has now won 2 games in the regional in ways that they had not won games all year, right? Only scoring 2 goals. First 2 times all year that Denver won having scored 2 goals. The second thing is, Tyler, we just talked about it. It's been like since October when we saw Denver come in and play Boston College. Oh, this Denver team's really good, but Matt Davis, who knows? I got to tell you, Matt Davis has been so good for Denver, including most notably his performance, 46 saves against UMass in 2 overtimes, 70 of 72 shots stopped in Springfield. He had a 1.89 and a 931 save percentage in the month of March, which he was named the national goaltender in the month. But Denver, it's really interesting because it feels like the conversation we're having about Denver is very similar to the conversation we're going to have about Boston College coming up here in a few minutes, because they did it without one of their best players. Massimo Rizzo has been out since February, or pretty early on in February. They've won 7 straight, and they're 12-1-1 without him. And that does not mean he's not an important piece. Feels very similar to what Boston College did without Gabe Perreault, right? It felt like, you're watching it. Are they quite as sharp without him? When he's back, it just sort of fills things out a little bit. But they just kept winning. And that's the thing that really impresses me about this Denver team. Now, One thing to look out for with Denver, their power play has not been great here recently. Just 3 for their last 30 on the power play, and what was a good power play all year. However, they scored a power play goal against Cornell. It ended up being the game-winning goal that they scored, Sam Harris scoring that one at the end of the second period. So the fact that they've gone on this stretch, this 12-1-1 without their power play, and they've gone on this stretch without Rizzo, that's pretty impressive. Things we've heard that Denver is very hopeful that Rizzo could go, and that just sort of fills out their lines a little bit. The one spot that you think BU might have a pretty big advantage is the power play, because Denver's penalty kill has not been great all year. However, even there, they've stiffened a little bit. They're 25 for their last 28 over their last 11 games, despite being around 77% for the season. But for this Terriers team, as you said, you love the fact that they came back against Minnesota after falling behind. You love the fact that there was all the conversation. They're not going to be in Springfield. They're going to have to go out west. It certainly did not feel like a problem for this BU team. They just went right through, came back against Minnesota. There's a lot to like about the way they're playing defense. And when we have a Frozen Four with the top 4 offenses in the country, whoever might play the best defense might be the team that ends up coming away. So there's a lot of reasons to like BU. There's a lot of reasons to like Denver, and that's what makes for exciting Frozen Four games.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday afternoon and evening is going to be insane. And of course, the nightcap, Boston College against Michigan. And what more can we say against BC? I got a couple of notes. I mean, they've proven, this is obvious, that if they hang around, if it's a back and forth game, if it's a 1-goal game, they're going to beat you. You have to lock the door and throw away the key, or they're going to come back. I mean, the last time BC lost was 15 games ago, and that took a 4-1 lead from BU in the Beanpot almost halfway through the third period. But it felt like BC was still going to win. They get a Schamberger goal. They get the second goal from Perreault. If that game goes a few more minutes, we've said this a couple of times throughout the year, they probably come back and at least tie that game. The 2-0 lead for Quinnipiac in the regional final still wasn't enough. The Bobcats played a nearly perfect third period with a 1-goal lead, and that still wasn't enough. I mean, if Quinnipiac can't do it the way they play and the way they don't make mistakes, I'm not sure who can. Really important, I think, for BC was the game-tying goal from Aaron Minetti, and not just because, of course, it kept their season alive, but, I mean, maybe that introduces a new weapon for the Eagles that they didn't have so much during the year. BC's top-scoring defenseman was Eamon Powell with 5 goals, ton of assists. I mean, he's such an amazing player, but in terms of blue-line goal scoring, that's not something they've needed to rely on. Minetti had just 1 goal during the regular season, but now he's got 2 in postseason play. He scored against UMass at the Garden, and then, of course, the biggest goal of his career so far against Quinnipiac. So at least that makes teams like Michigan and whoever maybe they play in the championship something more they have to game plan for instead of just loading up against those top 6 forwards. So, and we know this time of year, how many goals do we see change games that just come in from the blue line, hit a body, find their way in? So maybe a new, if not brand new element for BC, something more that the opposition has to consider.
Yeah, let's talk about this Michigan team that Boston College is going to play. They are maybe a little bit unknown here to some Hockey East fans, except for UMass obviously played them early in the season. Providence has had some experience with them. But it's worth saluting Michigan first and foremost. 3rd straight Final Frozen Four here, for a team that has gone through a lot off the ice the last couple of years, to say it simply. Coaching change, whatever the case may be. And it's a little bit of a different view for this Michigan team because remember, it's only a few weeks ago that this Michigan team was firmly on the bubble for the pairwise and not a guarantee at all. So the old cliche of they've been playing playoff hockey for a while, it's true with this Michigan team. Their only loss in this recent stretch was in the Big Ten championship game to Michigan State. They obviously avenged that in the regional final against that same Spartans team. Maybe a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of this Michigan team. They aren't the one who's everybody is talking about in the same way. That doesn't mean they don't deserve to be, though, for how much talent is on this group. A couple of things that stand out, though, from their regional performance. Number one, the third periods that they played against North Dakota and against Michigan State. That was a little bit of a struggle point through the course of this season for Michigan, but they really locked in both of those games. Seamus Casey, who's such an important piece, was injured in the North Dakota game. All indications are he will be good to go. He's practiced this week. You have to talk about Gavin Brindley, one of the group of sophomores that is such a crucial piece of this Michigan team. Over 60% of their scoring comes from their sophomore class. He has 53 points. Rutger McGrarty, many folks remember from World Juniors. He was the captain of that U.S. team that so many of the BC and BU guys were a part of. He's the team leader in points per game. And how about old hockey's friend Marshall Warren, who was the Eagles' captain last year, who now is playing his grad year with Michigan. He scored a goal in the regional final against Michigan State, so that's something to watch out for. Jake Barcheski is the goalie for Michigan. He's a transfer from Canisius after playing his undergrad years there, and he was really special against Michigan State. 38 saves against State in that regional final. He's a Missouri native, so pretty special for him to win that in Missouri. And then the last piece, Michigan's power play is as elite as it gets, 34.5%. That is the best in the country. We have the top two power plays in this game, by the way. Michigan and Boston College is second. That Michigan power play is the best power play rate that any team would have finished with since Harvard went 35.9% in 1987. That's according to the Michigan game notes. So something to watch there. But it's interesting with this BC team. You mentioned a lot of the things that are worth talking about. The questions that come up are, number one, they just played a style against Michigan Tech, too, to their credit, and Quinnipiac, that may be the style that makes life difficult for them. That's a style, at least, generally speaking, that they're not going to see in the Frozen Four. That's number one. Number two, they're the only team without Frozen Four experience here. Remember, Denver 2 years ago won the national championship. Michigan's been here 3 years in a row. BU was here last year. BC has not been there. Now, that doesn't mean that their guys have not been in big games, because with World Juniors and so on and so forth, they have. But that is an interesting note. The other thing, though, the statistical anomaly, we talked about it. We have the best offenses in the country. We have so many good power plays here. All of these teams are pretty similar statistically on paper. There's one spot that stands out, and Boston College has far and away the best penalty kill of any of these four teams. BC is number one in the nation. The other three don't have a penalty kill over 80%. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't been better in spurts and better recently. Denver's has, BU's has. But at least for the full season, that is something to note. And then lastly, we'll talk about the Hobie hat trick in a little bit, and Cutter Gauthier is Boston College's representative there. Will Smith's leading the nation in points. But boy, if you want to talk about valuable, we talk about MVPs. We don't use the word valuable as much. We use outstanding normally. But in terms of valuable, I'm not sure there was a more valuable player than Ryan Leonard was in that regional and maybe through these whole playoffs. And having a guy who is that skilled and can score that much, 4 goals and an assist, or the most points of anyone in regional play, but also can play that style of hockey, it brings so much to you as a championship caliber team. And having him in those spots has been really, really important for Boston College, and might just be the differentiator in a Frozen Four that feels really hard to predict and pretty wide open.
We can't wait for it. Should be a phenomenal final 3 games total this year. Can't believe we're already at this point, Eric, which does bring us to our final short shift of the season. It's brought to you by the Shift Group, helping elite athletes and veterans become elite sales professionals. Take it away, my friend.
Well, I think it's worth noting here, and not to be, too overly sentimental, but this doesn't happen all the time, that we have 2 Hockey East teams in the Frozen Four, that we have the caliber of player that we've seen all year throughout the league. It's worth enjoying what this weekend has the potential to be. Just to start with, as we said earlier, it's only the 4th time that BC and BU have been in the same Frozen Four. It feels impossible that it's been 34 years since that's happened, but it's been since 1990 that BC and BU have been in the Frozen Four. The fact that we have 2 Hobie hat trick finalists, and I don't know how anyone's picking between Macklin Celebrini and Cutter Gauthier, by the way. Macklin, only the 4th freshman since the turn of the century, with 30 goals and 30 assists in the season as a freshman, and all doing it as a 17-year-old, by the way. Cutter Gauthier, 37 goals, for the most of anyone since 2006. If he somehow would get to 40, which obviously, if BC got to a final is possible, but would take a little bit of work, be the first time in almost 30 years that anyone had ever gotten to 40 goals in a season. You have Jacob Fowler, who's a Mike Richter Award finalist. We talked about the wins record. He's now set it. Most wins ever by a freshman goalie in an NCAA season with 31. You've had Ryan Leonard and Will Smith break Boston College freshman record of guys who are really big-time names in the hockey world. Gianta, we're talking about big names that these guys have broken. And we might get to a place where the top 5 scorers, right now it's 5 of the top 6, but the top 5 scorers in the country might play on Com Ave. I mean, that is completely unheard of. This does not happen all the time. It should be a phenomenal Frozen Four, and we can't wait to watch it. It is bittersweet that it brings to an end our first season of This Week in Hockey East. We cannot thank Brian Smith and Elliot Jenner and all the folks at Hockey East for helping put this together every week and watching when we ramble on past our time limit. And, 34 minutes will live in infamy for a certain episode. But we're so appreciative of them. So appreciative of anyone watching. We hope to continue this. So if you have anything that you haven't heard on these shows that you'd love to hear on your preview shows, reach out during the summer. Let us know what you'd like to hear. We hope to make this a staple of hockey seasons going forward.
Yeah, well said, Eric. And I think the secret sauce to this show is that you and I talk about this stuff all the time. We just happen to hit record once a week. And, we're not just here for the zip line. We're here because we love this league, its schools, and its fans. And, I mean, what a special year to have for the inaugural season of This Week in Hockey East. I guess the bottom line is we're not going anywhere. Who knows? Maybe some off-season shows, but I mean, we are just so honored to be able to cover this league in a year like this and for many years to come. So thanks to anyone who's watched even a second of this show this year. It's been a whole lot of fun for us.
Our thanks to all the folks, the radio folks, the SIDs, BU Hockey Stats, everyone who's helped us out and provided a little bit of info, helping to bring us this to you. So thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the Frozen Four, and we will talk to you soon on This Week in Hockey East.